Our agenda for today is to introduce the concept of absorptive capacity, summarize the study paper, we'll talk about the propositions of the study, we'll give an overview of the Canadian company we chose, which is Tim Hortons, and finally, we'll talk about how Tim Hortons can benefit from this study. I'll start with explaining what the concept of absorptive capacity is. According to Shaker and Girard, ACAP is defined as a set of organizational routines and processes that organizations use to acquire, assimilate, transform, and use information in order to create a dynamic organizational capability. In simple terms, absorptive capacity is basically the organization's ability to acquire, assimilate, and apply external knowledge in order to improve its performance and competitive advantage. Moving on to the study summary, there have been several studies on the analysis of ACAP and its importance to strategic management. The purpose of this research was to reconceptualize ACAP and distinguish between a firm's potential and realized capacity. The traditional view of ACAP emphasizes on the firm's ability to value, assimilate, and apply information toward commercial ends. The researchers reconceptualized this view and defined ACAP as a set of organizational routines and strategic processes by which firms acquire, assimilate, transform, and exploit knowledge for the purpose of value creation. The traditional view of ACAP also emphasizes on ACAP having three dimensions with a single factor component, while the researchers reconceptualized ACAP in four dimensions with two distinct components, which is the PACAP and the RACAP. Also, the traditional view sees value creation through innovation, but the reconceptualized view sees value creation through the dimensions that comprises of the two components, where RACAP allows creation of a competitive advantage and Packer provides strategic flexibility to change and reconfigure firms' operations. The article reconceptualized ACAP from three to four distinct capabilities, which are acquisition, assimilation, transformation, and exploitation. So the dimensions of ACAP are acquisition, assimilation, transformation, and exploitation. Acquisition in this concept refers to a firm's capability to identify and acquire external generated knowledge that is critical to its operation. Assimilation refers to the firm's routines and processes that allows it to analyze, process, interpret and understand the information obtained from external sources. Transformation denotes a firm's capability to develop and refine the routines that facilitate combining existing knowledge and the newly acquired and assimilated knowledge. Exploitation on the other hand refers to the routines that allows firms to refine, extend and leverage existing competencies or create new ones, incorporating acquired and transformed knowledge into its operations. The study states how the dimensions build upon each other to make a cap into a coherent dynamic capability that fosters organizational change and evolution. The researchers also suggest that potential and realized capacities, which are the PACAP and RACAP, are the two components of ACAP. The study further explains how PACAP makes the firm receptive by acquiring and assimilating external knowledge, and how RACAP reflects the firm's capacity to leverage the knowledge that has been absorbed. Talking about the potential and realized ACAP, according to the study, PACAP and RACAP have separate but complementary roles and coexist at all times to fulfill a necessary but insufficient condition to improve a firm's performance. In a nutshell, the study ponders on the need to distinguish between the capabilities to acquire and assimilate knowledge, which is the PACAP, and the capabilities to transform and exploit this knowledge, which is the RACAP, and to account on the efficiency with which organizations leverage both PACAP and RACAP. Moving on, the model of ACAP is a model that the researchers use to connect the antecedents, moderators, and outcomes of this construct. It indicates that both PACAP and RACAP differentially contribute to competitive advantage. This model is gotten from the paper, and it suggests that external knowledge sources significantly influences PACAP, which also influences the RACAP. While the activation triggers moderate the impact of knowledge sources and experience on ACAP development, the social integration mechanism and efficiency factor in ACAP facilitates the sharing and eventual exploitation of knowledge. Finally, finally ACAP can be a source of a firm's competitive advantage. Moving on, the company came up with 7 propositions that articulate the core ideas of the model of ACAP. Proposition 1 states that the greater a firm's exposure to diverse and complementary external sources of knowledge, the greater the opportunity is for the firm to develop its PACAP. Proposition 2 states that experience will influence the development of a firm's PACAP. Proposition 3 states that activation triggers will influence the relationship between the source of knowledge and experience and PACAP. Proposition 4 is of the view of the use of social integration mechanism reduces the gap between PACAP and WACAP, thereby increases the efficiency factor. Proposition 5 states that firms with well-developed capabilities of knowledge transformation and exploitation, which is the RACAP, are more likely to achieve a competitive advantage through innovation and product development than those with less developed capabilities. Proposition 6 says that firms with well-developed capabilities of knowledge acquisition and assimilation, which is the PACAP, are more likely to sustain a competitive advantage because of greater flexibility in reconfiguring their resource bases and in effectively timing capacity deployment at lower costs than those with less developed capabilities. Proposition 7 states that the regime of appropriability moderates the relationship between RACAP and sustainable competitive advantage, and further describes it below as under strong regimes of appropriability, there will be a significant and positive relationship between RACAP and a sustainable competitive advantage because of the higher costs associated with imitation. And then proposition 7b says that under weak regime of appropriability, there will be a significant and positive relationship between RACAP and a sustainable competitive advantage only when firms protect their knowledge, assets, and capabilities through isolating mechanisms. If not, such a relationship is likely to be weak or non existent.
Good morning, class. This is Alvi. Today, I'm going to talk about the application of the article. We consider Tim Hortons as a best fit with the article. So, first of all, we have to go through the overview of the Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons founded in 1964 as a coffee and donut shop dedicated to satisfying the changing tasting of consumers through product innovation. Tim Hortons menu includes various items such as coffee, tea, hot chocolate, donut, sandwiches, and baked products. As all of you know, 95% franchise owned in Canada, which is merged with Wendy's International Incorporation back in 1995 to focus more on United States expansion. The slogan of Tim Hortons is always fresh, always Tim Hortons. There are two strategies which is followed by Tim Hortons. One is Blue Ocean strategy, whereas Tim Hortons focus on unexplored market and try to create new demand. Tim Hortons has invested considerably in market research and in understanding consumer trends and behavioral patterns. Whereas in Red Ocean strategy, Tim Hortons competes with existing players in existing market and define industry boundaries. We construct buyer productiveness map, whereas Tim Hortons use of the buyer utility map in its exploration of untapped market for purpose of growth and expansion. The buyer utility map helps Tim Hortons understand customers better and also allows Tim Hortons to think and perceive from a buyer's point of view. As such, the company is able to explore the demand and the way to do better, and also allows Tim Hortons to devise innovative to enhance the buyer utility that are different than the conventional pattern. Exploration of the demand also helps Tim Hortons develop new experiences for buyers with its offering to help enhance their relation and interaction with the products and increase the offerings. Tim Hortons is thus able to identify different and various utility spaces that is offering can potentially fill their customer demand. So as you can see, there is 6 pyramid we put in our map, or 6 sigma you can say, starting from in-store purchase and ending from product innovation. So we put high, moderate, low in our ranking. So by using their ranking, we can understand the customer feedback. There is another graph which we call it Blue Ocean Value Innovation. There is a simple questions. So Tim Hortons has made use of the Blue Ocean strategy optimally by making use of the framework which is called sequence to able to gain the highest benefit and profit from it. Tim Hortons makes use of the optimal sequencing for value innovation under the Blue Ocean strategy. Say for example, buyer utility, price, cost, and adoption. By making use of the sequence, Tim Hortons is able to tap into the blue oceans of untapped market and make sure that its growth is coming from unused market spaces and is organic in terms of demand creation. With its sequence, Tim Hortons has also been able to reduce the risks of expansion and internationalization, and at the same time also ensure that maximum value is created and enjoyed not only by the customers but also by the company itself in the untapped and new market spaces. So now, as you can see from our first presenter's proposition from the articles, so now we're gonna talk about how Tim Hortons will benefit from this study. So from proposition 1, which is local market adaptation. Tim Hortons operate in various regions, each with its own cultural and customer preference. Exposure to diverse external knowledge sources, including local market experts and partners, can enable the company to adapt its new and marketing strategies. So, in proposition 2, which states that experience influences the development of the firm's potential absorptive capacity. So, learning from past successes and mistakes. Tim Hortons has accumulated experiences in the coffee and fast food industry over years. By reflecting past, the company can develop a deeper understanding of what has worked and what hasn't, and then develop an effective strategy for the company. And the last point is identifying core competencies. Tim Hortons can use its experience to identify its core competencies and areas of expertise. These are core competencies are critical component of the company's potential absorptive capacity, as they serve as a foundation upon which new knowledge can be built. And proposition 4, which is gather market response and use feedback for strategic planning. Basically, it's focused on the use of social integration mechanism to reduce the gap between potential absorptive capacity and realized absorptive capacity. Fostering a culture of collaboration and knowledge sharing among employees can help Tim Hortons to bridge the gaps. Last but not the least, proposition 6, which is market expansion. So this might involve adapting its menu and marketing strategies to cater local local taste and preferences from the customers to expand their market. Thanks all. If you have a question, we are welcome to hear from you, and thanks for watching.